Hello everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. And if you're here for the first time, welcome. If you're a returning subscriber, a veteran in this channel, welcome back for yet another exciting episode of Risk, Money and Insurance. And so today we're still continuing with the insurance part of the channel. And so let's just dive into what we call your critical illness cover, right? And I will just start with like a mini story, and then we shall continue to just dive into what it is, what it covers, what is not covered, what to watch out for, the terms and conditions, all the nice things, right? Your premiums as well and the benefits. But before we continue, I just want to put out a disclaimer that contents of this video do not constitute as financial advice. If you do need financial advice, you need to speak to a registered financial advisor who's registered with the Financial Sector Conduct Authority. Oh, hectic. Yeah, FSCA, essentially. But before we waste any time, let's just dive into it, right? So critical illness, another name for it is your dread disease cover, right? So the conditions that are normally covered will be stipulated, of course, in the insurance contract, but the common sort of illnesses that are covered will be something like your stroke, your heart attack, your cancer, your coronary heart, bypass, those things would be covered, right? But also there are additional conditions that may be covered, which of course you need to refer to your policy document. And so I remember when I started working, you know how normally you would get things like your life cover with your employer. You'll also get things like your income protection with your employer, like disability benefits with your employer and all of that. But a common thing that I've sort of, discovered is that when it comes to your critical illness cover, normally your group benefits from your employer won't actually include like a critical illness cover. So upon having a discussion with, my financial advisor at the time, we were sort of going through, the different benefits that I have from my employer, and also just like, what additional cover I need as a person. And so we actually discovered that the critical illness part, I wasn't covered. It wasn't part of the group cover. So when does this thing actually pay out? What happens? What has to happen for it to pay out a claim? So normally they'll give you like a lump sum, right? So of course you will have different options. They might say we'll give you 100,000 if you are diagnosed with breast cancer, for example, or we might give you 100,000 if you get to a certain stage of cancer. So maybe stage 1 might not trigger a payment, but like something like stage 2 cancer might trigger a payment. Or they might say like, maybe you have to have certain impairments, right? So perhaps you develop a certain heart condition or whatever, which causes you to struggle to breathe on your own or whatever, to the extreme, get to such extreme of an illness for us to pay out. But all of this will be, of course, included in the policy documentation that you will get. And it's also something important to just like keep in mind to say, when I'm buying this dread disease cover, what is actually covered and when, do they pay out? And also how much do they pay out? Because sometimes they might get fancy with it and start saying, well, we will only give you like 50% of the lump sum if you are diagnosed with this, or we will give you the other amount if you're diagnosed with this level or this stage of cancer. So it's sort of like important for you to understand that first. And also another thing that you need to realize that as much as we say the benefit can be a lump sum, it can also be like, a series of payments which you're not restricted in terms of what you can do with those, the lump sum or the amount that you receive from the insurer. So it's up to you to decide, what will I do with this money? You can take the money to pay, your medical bills, or you can take the money to pay off your loans, or you can take the money to just sustain yourself, or like seek, a nurse to help you out, or whatever you want to do with the money really. So there isn't, restrictions in terms of what you can do with the money, as long as, you have met the claim requirements and you're able to actually get something from that contract. So your premiums, you'd normally pay them, of course, like on a monthly basis and whatever, until such a time when you have to claim. So this kind of contracts, they can come like as a standalone, meaning like you can literally go to an insurer and say, I am buying a critical illness or a dread disease cover. Or you can actually say, well, just add it on top of my life cover, or add it on top of, whatever death benefit product you have. So it can come as a package, right? To say it's a rider on a death benefit, right? Or it's a rider on, your life cover, or whatever it is. So that's also like another option as to how you can get this kind of cover. So in cases where you're getting the critical illness cover combined with the death benefit, what will essentially happen, if it's an accelerator benefit, what will normally happen is that if you are diagnosed with such a critical illness, then whatever they will pay out when they have to pay out your death benefit, the amount, let's say you were meant to get like $1 million when you die, and you were diagnosed with a critical illness and they gave you something like 100,000. When you do die, then it reduces that amount which we're supposed to get on death, which is now, instead of $1 million, you might actually end up getting like 900,000 or something like that. So it's quite important to understand, like, am I buying a standalone product, or am I buying like an accelerator benefit? So it's important to understand such things. And also another thing that you need to realize is that with terms and conditions, right? So there are different terms and conditions that might apply. They might say, well, we will only pay out if you survive for a certain number of days. Let's say you were diagnosed today. They might say, we're not going to pay out today, but we will wait for a specific period. Let's say 14 days, for example. They might have to wait for 14 days before they can pay it out, just so you survive. And if you do not survive within that period, then, you forfeit your benefit. Essentially, if it was a standalone, then of course you forfeit the benefits because you didn't survive that number of days after having an operation or after diagnosis. But if you bought the accelerated benefit, right, with a death benefit in the same cover, then you get into a situation where now at least you can claim, instead of getting your critical illness claim, then you will get the death benefit at the end of the day. So those are just like some important pointers and some important things to sort of think about as well, to say, well, if I am diagnosed today, am I covered, right? But also in the next video we'll be discussing your income protection versus your critical illness, because I feel like sometimes the lines can be a bit blurry. A lot of people, might actually say, well, I have income protection, so I don't necessarily need a critical illness cover. Other people might say, I want to actually have both, right? Depending on, your risk appetite and all of that. And so I think it's important to sort of understand what is covered, what is not covered, all the exclusions and stuff that may arise, so that at the end of the day whether you are sitting with a level of risk that you are comfortable with as an individual. But overall, with critical illness, that's it. It's just like they're paying out because you are diagnosed with a certain type of illness that is critical, I guess. So a condition that will be included in the contract itself. So it's quite important to understand what is covered and what is not covered. And also the interesting thing is there are some conditions that perhaps in 10 years time, right, that we might not know. Let's say, for example, you might not know about a certain dangerous liver condition that at this point in time is not really that dangerous. Insurers do actually make reservations for such things, to say if there is a condition that might arise in future, we are going to cover it depending on its severity and how dangerous it is. So when a new condition sort of like surfaces and stuff, you can always check with your insurer to say, well, there's this new condition, is it covered, is it not covered? I remember during COVID, there was a time where doctors, if you get diagnosed with COVID and stuff, they would claim, right? COVID was actually covered in some contracts, so they will go claim and get money. Like you claim, I think they were getting around 60,000 and so or so from PPS, if I'm not mistaken. So such things is important to know, because you might actually get COVID and not claim because you don't know that you have such a cover. So it's always important to understand what you've bought into and what is covered, what triggers a claim and what doesn't. So at the end of the day, that is all I have to say today about your critical illness cover. If you have any questions or if you have something to add, just drop a comment in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. I love you guys so much. Mwah. I'll see you in the next video. Oh, bye.